All right. Good evening and welcome to this edition of VS Versus. That's right. Today is Thursday, September 19th, 2024. And this is episode number 4 of the show that takes two topics or two things and contrasts them. We'll be looking at a little bit of a sweet tooth today. Yeah, if you've got a craving for donuts, you might be impressed with what we've got tonight. As we're looking at the old school Dunkin' Donuts versus a little bit newer, but still goes as far back as Dunkin' Donuts, Krispy Kreme. That's who we're going to be looking at tonight on this edition of Versus. All right, it's time now for the 4th episode of this series, and we hope that you enjoyed the first 3 and have voted respectively on what you liked as far as Coke versus Pepsi, McDonald's versus Burger King, and Pizza Hut versus Domino's. And tonight, we've got 2 more interesting topics to contrast. You had your soda, you had your burgers, you had your pizza, and now you're going to have dessert with Dunkin' Donuts and Krispy Kreme. We'll be back to look at Dunkin' Donuts right after this.
Cars aren't cheap, never have been. That's why I never take shortcuts with cheap oil and air filters. Give me AC filters every time. AC filters match the original specs on my cars like a nut on a bolt.
Precision AC Delco parts. They don't just fit, they match.
Keep your car running the way it was made to run.
Now get up to $7.80 back on AC filters and plugs. See your retailer for details.
Just because a glass and surface cleaner is blue like Windex doesn't mean it cleans glass as well as Windex, because only Windex is specially formulated with ammonia D. It leaves a beautiful streak-free shine just about anyone can appreciate. Windex, the best on glass, from S.C. Johnson Wax.
Caramello. Caramello. Oh, it's such a sweet imagination. From your fingers to your mouth. Chocolate and glowing caramel. Caramello.
Alex Klein is a real Geico customer, not a paid celebrity. So to help tell his story, we hired that guy who does those funny sound effects.
My car was totaled over 1,000 miles from home. So I called Geico. And in less than 10 business hours, I got a check for a new car.
Geico, real service, real savings.
Hi, Grandpa.
Hey there, Ryan.
Grandpa, you can't imagine how many different butter candies I just saw in the store.
Yes, I can imagine that.
But you can't imagine how many of them had golden wrappers.
Well, I can imagine that too.
But Grandpa, can you imagine that there are people who actually buy that other stuff?
No, I cannot imagine that.
Alf destroyed my 23-year marriage, says Heartbroken Star. Enquire within.
We've got what you want, the way that you want it.
Lisa Bonet kicks hubby out of house just 3 weeks after the birth of their new baby. He's gone for 5 days.
Inquire within.
Mary Tyler Moore's battle against skin cancer. Mr. Spock snubs Star Trek pals at his wedding. Get all this and more in this week's National Enquirer.
'Cause we've got what you want, the way that you want it. Inquire within.
All right, now it's time to go ahead with the first of the contrasting topics, looking at Dunkin' Donuts, the history. And we'll bring that up for you right now. All of our information comes from the Wikipedia, the free encyclopedia. So Bill Rosenberg opened Open Kettle. Wasn't even called Dunkin' Donuts. And he basically... He opened it in 1948, a restaurant selling donuts and coffee in Quincy, Massachusetts, a suburb of Boston. But he changed the name in 1950 to Dunkin' Donuts after discussing with company executives. He conceived the idea for the restaurant after his experiences selling food in factories and at construction sites, where donuts and coffee were the two most popular items. The restaurant was successful, and Rosenberg sold franchises to others starting in 1955. Then in 1963, Rosenberg's son Bob became CEO of the company at age 25, and Dunkin' Donuts opened its 100th location that year. It was a subsidiary of Universal Food Systems at the time, a conglomerate of 10 small food service businesses, and Dunkin' Donuts locations varied greatly in their menu options, with some selling full breakfasts and others serving only donuts and coffee. In the following years, the other businesses in the Universal Food Systems portfolio were sold or closed, and the company was renamed to Dunkin' Donuts. The menu and shop format was standardized, and various new menu items were introduced. In the early 80s, counter service and ceramic coffee cups were replaced by self-service counters and paper cups. The chain went public in 1968 and was acquired by Baskin-Robbins owner Allied Lyons in 1990. By 1998, the brand had grown to 2,500 locations worldwide with $2 billion in annual sales. Dunkin' Donuts expanded in the 90s by buying out two rival chains, Mr. Donut, which was founded by Bill Rosenberg's former partner Harry Winokur, and Dawn Donuts. At some point, the chain produced a donut specifically designed for dunking with a handle. This was discontinued in 2003, except in Singapore, because it was hand-cut and uneconomical compared to machine-cut donuts. Then in 2004, the company's headquarters were relocated to Canton, Massachusetts. In 2005, Dunkin' Donuts and Baskin-Robbins, by then operating under the name Dunkin' Brands, were sold to a private equity consortium of Bain Capital, Carlyle Group, and Thomas H. Lee Partners for $2.4 billion. By 2010, Dunkin' Donuts' global sales were $6 billion. Then in June of 2013, Dunkin' Donuts unveiled a new store design, the brand's first in almost 7 years. The Dunkin' Donuts location in Natick, Massachusetts, launched a program to test the concept of curbside pickup in December of 2016. In January of 2018, Dunkin' Donuts began to open on new concept locations, beginning in Quincy, featuring modern decor, cold beverages on tap, and a single-cup brewing machine, more packaged takeout options, and dedicated pickup lines for mobile ordering inside and in the drive-thru. The concept was described as being part of a shift towards becoming an on-the-go, beverage-led brand, and in addition, the location, as well as others, began to trial signage referring to the chain as simply Dunkin', removing donuts from the name. February of 2018, Dunkin' announced plans to phase out polystyrene foam cups globally for environmental purposes by April of 2020. In July of 2018, Dave Hoffman took over from Nigel Travis to become the CEO, and he's looking to add 1,000 new locations outside of the northeastern United States by the end of 2020 and to have a revenue increase of 3% for stores open a year or longer. Also, late 2018, Dunkin' installed espresso machines at all possible locations and launched espresso products using a new recipe. June of 2019, Dunkin' partnered with Grubhub to begin the rollout of its new Dunkin' Delivers service. Later in July of 2019, Dunkin' partnered with Beyond Meat to introduce a meatless breakfast sandwich in Manhattan, becoming the first U.S. restaurant brand to serve Beyond Sausage. The sandwich launched nationally later in 2019. September of 2019, the New York Attorney General's office alleged in a lawsuit that Dunkin' mishandled a series of cyber attacks that were directed at customers using the Dunkin' mobile app. These attacks took place in early 2015, and thousands of usernames and passwords stolen. The state lawsuit alleges that Dunkin' employees knew about these attacks but failed to take appropriate action. In October of 2020, Dunkin' Brands stated that the company was in conversation with Inspire Brands, a private equity-backed company negotiating to sell the company. Inspire Brands announced on Saturday, October 31st of 2020, that they would be acquiring Dunkin' Brands Group for $11.3 billion, which would include Dunkin' Brands' debt that Inspired Brands would be taking on. Inspire would pay $106.50 in cash for each of the Dunkin' Brands shares. And then on December 15th of 2020, the acquisition was completed, and Dunkin' Brands ceased to exist as a separate company, with Dunkin', Baskin-Robbins, and the trademark management of Mr. Donut becoming part of Inspire Brands. And you can pretty much see the marketing of the logo, which we all are familiar with. You know the products. You've been there before. The app is really helpful too. Locations all across the United States, international, including Canada, India, Lebanon, and going on around the world. So there you have it, folks. Dunkin' Donuts, the first on this edition of Versus. And when we come back, we'll look at the competitor of Dunkin' Donuts, one that I think maybe is going back a little bit farther, but maybe not. Krispy Kreme Donuts comes up right after this.
Meet Max Backtalk. Enter any sound you want. Then match it to your flashing light. Take it to the max. Very good. Again.
Billy,
Sexy.
nerd.
Sexy.
Nerd.
Billy, sexy. Take it to the max. New Max Backtalk from Milton Bradley.
You can help your hamburger. You can make it a delight.
Just smile and say cheeseburger macaroni tonight. Say cheese.
Hamburger helper.
Say cheese.
Help your hamburger. Hamburger helper. Help your hamburger helper. Make a great meal.
Hamburger Helper Cheeseburger Macaroni turns your plain hamburger into a savory, tangy cheddar cheese and macaroni supper your family will smile about.
Hamburger helper. Help your hamburger helper.
Say cheese.
Make a great meal.
On Amtrak's Metroliner service, you can spread out over breakfast. The air shuttle encourages closer working relationships. On Metroliner service, you can have a private conversation. The plane, however, offers conference calls. On Amtrak's Metroliner service, you can travel first class. On the air shuttle, everyone gets treated equally.
All aboard Amtrak. All aboard.
Thingamabob, gobbledygook. What's its face? Whatchamacallit? Whatever it is, whatever it was. Chocolatey chocolate. Whatchamacallit? How's it go? Wowzum-doo. Sugary caramel. Whatchamacallit? Doohickeys. You know what I mean. Peanutty crispies. Chewy, chocolatey, crunchy. Doodah. Let's get 'em Marie. More than a mouthful. It's whatchamacallit. Whatchamacallit.
The thick, rich taste you love. But sometimes, some days, you're in the mood for something a little bit tangy, a little bit kicky, a little bit spicy. Yeah, Heinz 57 sauce. It's like ketchup with a kick.
I never knew your cat was so cuddly. Right? She really loves these delectable squeeze-up treats. What? Delectables. The lickable treat.
Delickables?
Delectables.
Delickable delectables.
You funny. No, just delectables.
Deliciously delicable delectables.
You're hilarious.
You see what I did there?
Wow, she's going to town on this.
Delectables, squeeze up.
Deliciously delicable delectables.
Krispy Kreme is up next. The donut company that was a huge competitor to Dunkin' Donuts, mainly in the South, I would think, because up in the North, mostly, with a Boston-based company like Dunkin' Donuts, if you lived up there in that area like I did, you saw more Dunkin' Donuts before you ever saw a Krispy Kreme ever in your life. But sooner or later, we came down here and had a taste of the Krispy Kreme donut. Was I impressed? Not really. But anyways, we give you the history of it because we got to be fair. So, in 1933, 18-year-old Vernon Rudolph, along with his brother Louis, began working for his uncle, Ishmael Armstrong, who owned a small general store in Paducah, Kentucky, that sold a wide variety of goods, including its very popular donuts. And while the exact origin of the donut recipe remains partially a mystery, it is believed that Ishmael Armstrong was inspired by an Ohio River barge cook named Joseph LeBeau, who was famous for his light and fluffy donuts. The store struggled during the Great Depression. In 1934, Vernon and Ishmael decided to move to the larger city of Nashville, Tennessee, where they hoped business would be better. The uncle and nephew focused solely on selling their donuts and opened the Krispy Kreme Donut Company in a rented store on Galatian Avenue, or Galatian Road in this case. The shop did so well that Vernon's father, Plumie, also left Kentucky and moved to Nashville to help sell donuts. In 1937, Rudolph opened his own store, deciding on Winston-Salem, North Carolina, for the location when he learned that his favorite cigarette company, Camel, was headquartered in the small North Carolina city. Rudolph primarily sold to convenience stores, primarily sold to other convenience stores. However, he also sold hot donuts to individual customers who came during production time between midnight and 4 a.m. The first store in North Carolina was located in a rented building at 534 South Main Street in Winston-Salem, and is what is now called historic Old Salem. The Krispy Kreme logo was designed by Benny Dinkins, who was a local architect. The first Krispy Kreme bakery outside the South opened in Akron, Ohio in 1939. Expansion occurred in the 1950s, including an early store in Savannah, Georgia. And by the 60s, Krispy Kreme was known throughout the Southeast, and it began to expand into other areas. In 1976, Krispy Kreme Donut Corporation became a wholly owned subsidiary of Beatrice Foods of Chicago, Illinois. The headquarters for Krispy Kreme remained in Winston-Salem. A group of franchisees purchased the corporation back from Beatrice Foods in 1982. Krispy Kreme began another phase of rapid expansion in the 90s, opening stores outside the southeastern United States, where most of their stores were located. In December of 2001, Krispy Kreme opened its first store outside the U.S. in Mississauga, Ontario, Canada. The minimum investment amount required to open a Krispy Kreme franchise is $440,500 and can go all the way up to $4,115,000. On April 5th of 2000, the corporation went public on the NASDAQ at $21 using the ticker symbol KREM. May 17th, 2001, Krispy Kreme switched to the New York Stock Exchange with the ticker symbol KKD, which it carried until its private acquisition. The stock reached what would be its all-time high of $50 on the New York Stock Exchange in August of 2003, a gain of 135% from its IPO price. For the fiscal year ending in February of 2004, the company reported sales of $665.6 million and operating profits of $94.7 million from almost 400 stores, including international locations. The market initially considered the company as having solid fundamentals, adding stores at a rapid clip and showing steadily increasing sales and earnings. May of 2004, the company missed quarterly estimates for the first time and suffered its first loss as a public company. Chairman and CEO Scott Livingood attributed the poor results to the low carbohydrate diet craze. This explanation was viewed with skepticism by analysts, as blaming the Atkins diet for disappointing earnings carried a whiff of desperation. And as rival donut chain Dunkin' Donuts has not suffered from the low-carb trend over the same compared period. By 2005, the company's stock had lost 75 to 80% of its value amid earnings declines, as well as an SEC investigation over the company's alleged improper accounting practices. A turnaround plan in December of 2005 aimed to close unprofitable stores in order to avoid bankruptcy. Analysts suggest that Living Good had expanded the chain too rapidly after the IPO, which concentrated certain markets with too many stores. And while this approach initially grew revenues and profits at the parent company level, due to royalty payments from new franchisees, this reduced the profitability of individual franchisees in the long run as they were forced to compete with one another. For the 2003-04 fiscal year, while the parent enjoyed a 15% increase in second quarter revenues, same-store sales increased only 0.1%. Krispy Kreme also had supermarkets and gas stations carry their donuts, which soon contributed up to half of the chain's sales, creating further market saturation, as well as increasing competition to its franchisees. All this expansion devalued Krispy Kreme's brand novelty by making the once specialty donuts ubiquitous, particularly as the newer sales outlets required pre-made donuts as opposed to the ones made freshly in factory stores, which alienated brand devotees. And besides royalty payments from new stores, the parent company also enjoyed significant profits by requiring franchisees to purchase mix and donut making equipment from the parent's Krispy Kreme manufacturing and distribution division. KKM&D earned $152.7 million in 2003, which made up 31% of their sales, with a reported operating margin of 20% or higher. But these markups were largely at the expense of its franchisees. And by comparison, rival chain Dunkin' Donuts generally avoids selling equipment or materials to its franchisees, which keeps company and franchisees' interests aligned, as well as having a royalty stream based on same-store sales. Krispy Kreme has been accused of channel stuffing by franchisees, which stores reportedly received twice their regular shipments in the final weeks of a quarter so that headquarters could make its numbers. The company was also dogged by questionable transactions and self-dealing accusations over the buybacks of franchisees, including those operated by company insiders. A report released in August of 2005 signaled out then CEO Living Good and then COO John W. Tate to blame for the accounting scandals, although it did not find that the executives committed intentional fraud. March 4, 2009, the SEC issued a cease and desist order against Krispy Kreme for its actions, inflating their revenues and engaging in illicit activities regarding the purchasing of its own stores to prop up revenues and setting up mechanisms to guarantee that it beat earnings estimates by 0.01 of a penny, which eventually resulted in Krispy Kreme reducing the net income over 2 years by over $10.5 million. In it, the SEC proposed remedial actions for Krispy Kreme to take. Then in May of 2016, JAB Holding Company, a German investment firm, announced that it made an offer to purchase the company for $1.35 billion over the following 2 months that would make the company privately owned. The transaction closed on July 27, 2016. In December of the next year, in 2017, Krispy Kreme moved its corporate headquarters to Charlotte, North Carolina, while Winston-Salem retained the majority of operational departments and the Krispy Kreme Support Center. Also in 2010, Krispy Kreme Express, a delivery service for businesses, began testing at the Battleground Avenue location in Greensboro, North Carolina. In the early 2010s, the company began developing shops with tunnel ovens, which allow for an all-day hot donut experience. And then on February 24th of 2015, Krispy Kreme opened its 1,000th shop in Kansas City, Kansas. 2018, they acquired bakery chain Insomnia Cookies, which continues to operate independently. August 25th of 2020, the first Krispy Kreme vending machine was launched in North Carolina, featuring 3 packs of donuts available 24 hours a day. And finally, in May of 2021, Krispy Kreme confidentially filed for an initial public offering to once again go public. The company went public again on the NASDAQ on July 1st, 2021, under the name Krispy Kreme, Inc. There you have it. A look at the history right up to the present day, about 3 years, for Krispy Kreme donuts. When we come back, we're going to tell you about the vote. Actually, that's the end of the program. So in this case, we want you to go ahead and vote. Will it be Dunkin' Donuts or will it be Krispy Kreme donuts? You decide. We'll put that poll up on the YouTube page. Plus, we'll also put it up on the Facebook group page as well. I'm Jason Icanio. Episode 5 next Tuesday with 2 more to contrast on this edition of Versus. Have a great weekend. Bye for now.